Hey there, I'm Nick. I'm one of the owners of Tortoise Labs. We are Maine's rural product studio. Every year we bring dozens of products to market, software products, software-enabled products, and we help founders learn how to talk to customers so that they can do it too. So today we are talking about the question that we get most in all of our free classes, the question that we get the most by a lot in all of our free classes, and that is, how do I ask my first customers to pay me? So the title is How to Get Over Your Fear. So this is a scary question for a lot of founders and owners. It is. We have felt this fear ourselves, this anxiety, this uneasiness, right, of asking customers to pay us money for the product or service that we're providing them. And we're going to walk through how we do it and why we do it so that you can do it too, so that you can get over that fear, and so that the next time you have that conversation, it'll be a little bit less scary. So let's jump in. So first things first, asking your customers for money is no different than you asking for any other piece of feedback, than you asking for feedback about a product improvement, you asking for feedback about copy, whatever. It is just another question. It's going to feel like it's way, way, way more important than anything else, but it's just another question. So as with anything else, there's no good news, there's no bad news, there is only news. Asking this question gives you a response for any given customer so that you now have information to forge ahead. So we like to think of asking this question not as a closing opportunity, but as a learning opportunity. Now, that's easier said than done, of course, but you learning about this information from any given customer allows you to move forward. And if you ask this question enough times from enough customers, you'll have an understanding about what to do forging ahead with your product or business. So it's no different than any other question. It's really, really important to bring up, and we're going to talk about how we do it. So second things first, pricing is an experiment. So you can charge different prices to different customers, and that's okay, especially as you're getting going with your product or service. It's really okay for different people to pay different prices. After all, these people have different willingness to pay. So, of course, caveat, you do need to know what your costs are, what your business's costs are, right? Because you don't want to lose money. But it's important to think about, hey, customer one and customer two, they might have different needs. They might have different use cases. They might be using this thing entirely differently from one another. And because of that, they're going to value your product or service differently. And that's okay. As you charge more and more people, you're getting to get an understanding about who has the highest willingness to pay, what types of customers, and how they're using your product, right? And at that point, you're able to figure out what should standardized pricing look like. Do I need to charge different people different pricing? Do I need to charge by usage? Do I need to use a value approach? What's the best way to do this? But at first, it's okay to treat pricing as an experiment, because it is. And so the framework that we like to use, oftentimes asking this question happens at the end of a demo or at the end of a long conversation, or just, as you're going back and forth with a customer via email even. The question is super direct. It elicits either a yes or a no response. Is this something that you would pay for? And if the answer is yes, then great. That's tremendous news. You can find out about why they value this product. And if the answer is no, that's fine too, because you have an opportunity to learn about what would make them pay for this product, if anything. It's possible that this person might never be a customer, and that's actually good, right? Because in the future, you won't be wasting time trying to convince this person to pay you for your product or service. You can fire that customer. So this elicits either a yes or a no. If the answer is yes, you can go ahead and bill that person, right? Assuming that their willingness to pay is above your cost and is within, what you're thinking is an acceptable payment criteria, right? If the answer is no, if they don't have a willingness to pay, well, you can follow up with, well, what would be a no-brainer in order for you to pay? Or what needs to happen in order for you to pay? Or simply, why not? Oftentimes, what happens, especially as you're beginning to develop your product or service, is that a lot of people will say no for the same reasons, right? So, as you're asking this question and you're hearing, well, no, I would pay if it had blank, or I would pay if it helped me to accomplish blank. Oftentimes, that response is going to be the same across customers, right? And it's an opportunity for you to learn about how to improve your product or service. Now, if you do improve your product or service with that improvement and you turn around and you say, hey, I did this, right? Those people might have a willingness to pay. And better yet, if you say ahead of time, hey, we're going to build this, pay up now, right? Like you've transferred risk, right? You can, you might hear this feedback again and again and again, but folks still might not have a willingness to pay, right? Them saying they're interested in paying or them saying they're excited about paying, right? There's very little cost. And we're going to come back to cost in a second. Um, but anyway, long story short, super direct question. It elicits yes or no, and it allows you to gather more information. And if the answer is yes, you don't need to set up anything fancy. You're just looking to validate your product or service so you can bill with the things that you already know. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, regular cash money, a check, a money order, whatever. You don't need to go ahead and set up Stripe or Square or anything that you're not familiar with. If you are familiar with, of course, go ahead and set up those systems and bill with them. But the point is, use the things that you're familiar with, use the things that you're comfortable with already, so that you can go ahead and do this quickly. So you've already validated, hey, yeah, this person has a willingness to pay. They're excited to pay me. Cash in. Make sure you get that money. And this is sort of the question that comes next always. It's, okay, well, I feel comfortable asking people, but aren't I too early? Aren't I too early to ask my customers to pay me for my product or service? If you're providing a product or service to a customer and they find it valuable, they should be paying you. You should be collecting money from that person, right? You're probably not too early to ask if they're using something that you've made. And of course, you might be working through a trial or working through sort of experimentation early, and that's fine. But once a customer finds something valuable, it's okay to charge them. It's okay to broach the subject. And ultimately, especially with your first customers, they're sort of like teammates or partners, right? You're working together with them in order to help them to accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish, right? And so if they're accomplishing that thing really well, even with a really, really simple solution, it's okay to broach that subject and ask them to pay you. So we talked about costs before, right? Wait lists are great. They're a really nice way to collect people's email addresses to start conversations in order for you to learn more information, to dig in further with customers and deepen your relationship with them. But if you simply rely upon, hey, we have 1,000-person waitlist or we have a 10,000-person waitlist, that's great. But that conversion rate from waitlist to customer isn't going to be 100%, right? You might not even know what it's going to be. We've had wait lists that are thousands of people long in which we have conversion of 5%, and we've had tiny wait lists in which we have had seriously deep relationships with customers because we've engaged with them, and we've converted those lists at 50%, right? So wait lists are great, but they're on their own, they're definitely not enough, right? So they're not to be trusted. They're not to be trusted in isolation, I guess. So if you're collecting email addresses, that's fantastic, but be sure to follow up with those people, deepen that conversation, deepen those relationship, and learn more about that customer, their needs, and ultimately their willingness to pay. Because if you're banking on this, you might come up empty. So that's it for now. If you need a hand talking about how to broach the subject, practicing how to broach the subject, just thinking about it more, understanding whether you're there or not in terms of being ready to pay, just go ahead and ask. We'd be happy to help. This is a question that we get so often. How do I know when I'm ready to ask my customers to pay me? And how do I get over that? How do I get over that fear, that apprehension, that confusion? Right? It is scary, right? You're making yourself extremely vulnerable. You've built something, you've put it out into the world, and rejection stinks. And you're absolutely right that it does. But by avoiding asking this really important question, you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice because you're preventing yourself from learning highly valuable information about any given customer and a set of customers. So, if you need a hand, we would love to help. So just get in touch, and thank you so much for watching.